They laughed at her silence, mistook her stillness for fear. And in their eyes she was easy prey. Just another quiet girl they could mock, record, and forget by lunchtime. But what they never asked was why she never fought back. Because behind that silence was legacy. Behind those eyes was focus. And behind that girl was the training of a champion, passed down not through fame, but through love and loss. She didn't want to fight. But when cruelty left her no choice, she didn't fight for herself alone. She fought for the man who taught her to stand tall, even when the world tried to push her down. And what happened next left her enemies speechless, and the world looking at silence with new eyes. She walked the same hallway every day, head down, shoulders drawn in, her backpack a little too big for her frame. No makeup, no loud friends, no drama, just silence. The kind of silence that makes some people uncomfortable. She wasn't weak, but they thought she was. She wasn't afraid, but they counted on her pretending to be. Loser. Mute. You think you're better than us? The words were sharp, but she had heard worse. Because long before the world decided who she was, she had already survived something far more painful than their opinions. They laughed at her because she didn't fight back. What they didn't know was that she had made a promise. A promise to the one man who believed in her strength, even when she was too young to understand it. Her father. Gone now but not forgotten. And every day she walked that hallway, she carried his voice like armor. You don't fight until it's time. But when it's time, you don't flinch. They thought she was invisible. But all along, she was simply waiting. It started like every other afternoon. A crowded hallway. A careless shoulder bump. The usual whispers, followed by exaggerated laughter. But that day, something was different. Maybe they were bored. Maybe they were hungry for attention. Or maybe they just needed a target. And she was the one who never fought back. Hey, silent girl. You deaf or just stupid? Her hands tightened on her books. But she said nothing. One of them grabbed her bag and emptied it onto the floor. Pens scattered. Notebooks opened. A worn photograph of her father fluttered out and landed face up. They laughed. Is this your boyfriend? Or your daddy? That was the moment. Not when they mocked her. Not when they filmed her. But when they touched that photo. The only thing she never let anyone see. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply picked it up, slowly, carefully, brushing off the dust with her sleeve. And for the first time, she looked one of them directly in the eye. No words. Just a look, steady, unreadable. It wasn't fear. It wasn't rage. It was focus. And though they kept laughing, something in that gaze made one of them step back just half an inch. She said nothing. She walked away. But the ground had shifted. Because in mocking her, they hadn't broken her. They had activated her. That evening the house was quiet. Too quiet. She didn't go to her room. She didn't open her textbooks. She walked straight to the back of the house, where the old wooden shed sat, half forgotten under a blanket of ivy. She slid the door open. And there it was. The punching bag, patched with tape still hanging. The gloves worn down to the stitching. The floor scuffed from years of footsteps that taught her balance, rhythm, respect. Her father's gym. His world. And secretly hers too. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her, let the silence wrap around her like an old friend. Then wordlessly she began. One wrap, then the other. She slid on the gloves, cracked at the knuckles, still smelling faintly of leather and chalk. Her breath deepened. Her stance lowered. Step, cross. Not wild. Not angry. Controlled. Clean. Precise. Never swing with emotion, her father once said. Let emotion make you strong, but never let it make you sloppy. The memory wasn't sad. It was anchoring. With every movement, her body remembered what her heart had buried. She was trained. She was focused. And above all, she was patient. That patience had kept her quiet. But now it would help her rise. Not for revenge. Not for pride. But for every silent girl who had ever been told to shrink. And when she stopped, sweat glistening on her brow, she didn't smile. She simply looked at the bag. And whispered one word. Soon. Monday came like any other. The same hallway. The same cliques. The same whispers waiting to pounce. But she was different. Not louder. Not dressed in defiance. Still in that plain hoodie. Still with her bag snug on one shoulder. But something subtle had changed. Her steps were slower. Not hesitant, but deliberate. Her shoulders didn't curl in. They squared quietly. And when she passed by, she didn't flinch. She looked up. Just once. And that glance, calm, steady, unbothered, landed heavier than 1,000 insults ever could. The ringleader of the bullies cracked a joke. Something shallow, easy. Still playing the invisible game, princess? But no one really laughed. Even his closest friends felt it. That strange discomfort of power beginning to slip. Because power feeds on reactions. And today, she gave them nothing. Not fear. Not anger. Not shame. Just presence. Quiet. Calm. Focused presence. A few students looked at her differently. Curious. Unsure. As if they sensed something awakening beneath the silence. But had no name for it. And that's when it began. The unraveling of their confidence. She had said nothing. But in saying nothing, she had spoken louder than they ever had. Because real strength doesn't have to prove itself. It just has to exist, until someone notices they're no longer the strongest one in the room. The cafeteria was loud, like always. But at one table it was louder. The usual group, energized by an audience. And there she was again walking by, alone like always. This time they didn't wait. Hey, quiet girl. We missed your little death stare. One of them laughed, rising to block her path. The others joined in, surrounding her like a game. Come on. Say something. Meow if you're a cat. Blink twice if you're from another planet. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "Go live." She stood still. No reaction. Until one of them, too bold, too sure, reached for her wrist. That's when everything shifted. Not with a scream. Not with a punch. With a single, fluid movement. She stepped, turned, and redirected the boy's hand behind his back. So fast the room gasped before they even understood what had happened. He yelped, not from pain, but from shock. She let go. He stumbled back. And the phone slowly lowered. She didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. Just looked at him. The way a lion might look at a house cat pretending to roar. Then she said her first words in public. Calm as glass. Don't touch me. 3 words. That was all. But they cracked something deeper than bruises ever could. Because now the roles had shifted. The hunted had stood still. And the hunters realized they never understood their prey. And what scared them most wasn't her strength. It was the knowledge that she had it all along. And simply chose not to use it, until now. After that day things shifted, not just for her but for everyone. Whispers replaced the laughter. Who taught her that? She moved like she knew exactly what she was doing. That wasn't just instinct, that was training. In the gymnasium during PE, she stayed in the back like always. But one substitute coach paused mid-warm-up and stared. Her stance. Her precision. The way she stepped back on her left heel after a dodge. It was textbook. But not school textbook. Where did you learn that? He asked softly. She didn't answer. He didn't push. But that evening the coach made a quiet call to an old friend. A retired boxer. You remember Leon Graves? The champ who vanished after his last fight? Yeah. I think I just met his daughter. At school people noticed the way she moved through the halls now. Not seeking revenge. Not inviting a fight. Just calm. Grounded. Like someone who knew exactly who she was. And had nothing left to prove. Even the ones who mocked her began avoiding her eyes. Not out of guilt. But out of a new kind of awareness. Respect. Because strength built in silence has a presence all its own. And when the rumor finally reached the cafeteria, that her father had once held a national title, no one laughed. They looked at her. Not as the girl they once called invisible, but as the quiet storm they never saw coming. In a world that often confuses silence with weakness, she reminded us that quiet does not mean powerless. She didn't fight to be feared. She didn't speak to be heard. She simply stood, grounded in the values her father gave her, and unshaken by the noise around her. They tried to make her small, but her strength was never measured in size. It was measured in discipline, in self-respect, and in the courage to choose her moment. She didn't need the world to clap. She just needed to walk through it on her own terms. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of victory there is. So the next time you see someone quiet, someone overlooked, someone they laugh at and push around, look closer. Because you just might be standing next to someone who isn't trying to impress you. They're training to outgrow you. And one day, when it matters most, they'll rise. Not to prove you wrong, but to prove to themselves they were right to wait. This is such an amazing story. Dear friends, if you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There is still a lot of interesting things to come.